You're ready. Okay, I have 6 to go. We'll see if we get through 5 or 6, maybe just 5. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
I think Rabbi Markowitz is not here this Thursday. That's why I'm doing the 5 to go today. Okay, Parsha Shoftim talks about the laws of establishing your judicial system in Eretz Yisrael. And believe it or not, when Mashiach comes, that's how the judicial system is going to be. It's going to be a Torah-based legal system, what we call a theocracy. And I guess if we want to hasten the Geula, we could take steps now in Eretz Yisrael to include elements of Torah law, or where there are contradictions, try to resolve them, if possible, with the Torah law versus the civil law. I know it's not too practical in every instance, but at the time of Mashiach, it's going to be Torah law. And we'll talk about the schism that existed in frum parts of Europe before World War II. One of the Divrei Torah that I will tell you about is, in fact, we'll start with that one, with the Chavetz Chaim. And you could hear from the Dvar Torah, you're going to hear the animus that existed between the very, very frum and the very, very secular. People say that the idea of Zionism back in the 1800s, the late 1800s, all through until the establishment of the State of Israel, really, it was a very secular movement. And it created a lot of problems for the yeshivish element that might have been more willing to go and to support the fledgling movement had there been more, as I'll discuss, had there been less of a secular nature to it. But listen to this in Perek Yud Tes, Pasuk Beis. Let me read you the pasuk. The Vilna Gaon encouraged, it was not a movement. The Vilna Gaon encouraged Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. It was all from group. Of course, there's a mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, a mitzvah, Satluyas Ba'aretz, mitzvahs you can only do in Israel, like Truma and Meiser. That was always considered mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael and to do that. But when it started in the 19th century, when nationalism started and communism, the other side of it, different isms started. The movement to go to Israel was not a religious movement. I wouldn't say there was nobody religious, but the main impetus of the movement was not a religious movement at all. And that's why people like Rabbi Samshon Raphael Hirsch in the 1860s, 1870s, he was, like many Rabbanim, very much against it, and he had a very good svara. He said, if they support it, what they're going to do, they're going to go to Palestine and Jews are going to be Mechalel Shabbos and do all sorts of things. It'll be even worse. The situation for Jewry will be even worse if this is what happens if this is what we do in the land of Israel. And the movement with Rav Kook started later. It was sort of like, okay, they're there anyway, so you could be frum. You don't have to be Machal Shabbos. You could be frum. You could be kosher, but that was always a catch up until modern times. It was always catch up. Now with the Hester Yeshiva and now with the Haredi Dati Chardal movement, it's not catch up anymore. They're losing. The secularists are pretty much losing the battle, and the religious are taking over. But that's the last 30, 40 years probably of what's happening. Anyway, you could understand. The Torah tells us, Ki yachris Hashem Elokecha es hagoyim, when the Lord your God has cut down the nations, Asher Hashem Elokecha nosein lechos artzam, whose land the Lord your God is giving you, v'rishtam, and you shall v'rishtam, you have driven them out, v'yashafta v'yarehem ubevatehem, and you will be living in their houses and in their towns. So what do you have to do? What's the mitzvah that you have to do? Shalosh arim tavdilach, you have to set aside 3 cities, the Are Miklot, the Sohartzacha, in your land, Asher Hashem Elokecha nosein lecha lavishta, that God gives you as a heritage. Tachin lecha haderech. Listen to this word. Tachin lecha haderech. Determine the distances and divide the land. Tachin lecha means designate for yourselves the way. And Chazal tell us that Beis Din had to put up road signs. There had to be a GPS to get the rotseach, to get the negligent. It's usually negligence, but to get the person who is a rotseach v'shogeg, the non-deliberate murderer, to get him or her to the Ir Miklat, so that the Goel Hadam, so that the avenger, whose passion is boiling over, like, you killed doesn't get him first, because if you get him first, then that person is scot-free. So you had to make it easy. You had to set the lights all green to get this guy into the Ir Miklat. All right, so the Chavetz Chaim, let me get my source. The Chavetz Chaim had a Maisa in Radin. Okay, so listen to this. One time, 2 people came to Radin. This is what people did when they were representatives of movements. They still do it today. 2 shluchim came to Radin to collect money. One was a man from Yerushalayim, from the Moshav, the from Moshav. Okay, Ish Yerushalayim. This is in the Chavetz Chaim. So when it says Yerushalayim, it says the right wing. The very from man came to collect money for the Mosdos HaTorah and Chesed, to collect money for Torah charity. They were always poor in Yerushalayim, always needed money for their Chesed, for the hospital, for etc., for the yeshiva. Another one came to Radin, a Zionist, not a religious person, and he came to collect funds for a Zionist cause. Okay. The Zionist stayed in town very short time, and he came away with the money he needed, as described here, with sacks of money. He got what he wanted. But the one who came, the schnorrer, as we would call it, a schnorrer, had a hard time. And he had to stay there a long time to make money. And he was very upset. And he went to the Chavetz Chaim to get it off his chest. He told the Chavetz Chaim, why is it like this? I'm collecting l'shem shamayim. Why is it like this, that it's hard and I don't know if I'm going to have enough money, and very difficult? The Chavetz Chaim answered him and said, okay, listen to this. The Chavetz Chaim says, oh, that's the wrong one, this one, okay. Gotta get the right one. Chavetz Chaim says, in Arei Miklat that I just read you, the Torah says, Tachin lecha haderech. The society has to set up road signs and make it easy, make it very fast for the murderer, for the negligent murderer, to get out of town, to get to the city of refuge. We do everything to save him. But there's another mitzvah. What's the other mitzvah? Aliyah l'regel. Pilgrimage to Yerushalayim 3 times a year. And we don't find in the Aliyah l'regel, going to the Beis HaMikdash, there was no sign, there was no road sign, there was no brigade. We read about Shmuel Hanavi's father who got people to go to Yerushalayim, but there was no GPS, there was no announcements, there was no signs. This is the best way to go on this path, not on that path. There had no such system existed by Aliyah l'regel to make it easier for people to get to Yerushalayim. And the Chavetz Chaim says, look at this. The person, you catching on what he's saying? The person who the Arei Miklat is for, he's a murderer. Even though he is really a shogeg, he's an inadvertent murderer. He didn't mean to do it, but it's still an Aveira. You had to be extra careful. The way the Torah describes that you're chopping wood, you're oblivious, and the head of the axe goes. You had to look around. You had to, Adam is muad la'olam. A person is always responsible for his or her actions. You had to be careful that no one's walking. You can't be oblivious when you're doing something. Did you follow all the safety precautions? Yes, you didn't mean to do it, but you did it. You killed somebody, chas v'shalom. And the person has to sit in our Arei Miklat. You're not scot-free anymore until the Kohen dies, Kohen Gadol dies. You must be in the Arei Miklat. Your life has changed. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a person like this, what does Hashem want? Hashem doesn't want such a person to have too much contact with society. Once you did what you did, once you're unfortunately that type of person, get there very quickly. The less contact with society, the better. But a person going to Yerushalayim on Aliyah l'regel, people are going to see you and they're going to say, where are you going? I'm going to Yerushalayim. Why are you going? Oh, because it's 3 times a year we have to go. So you're going to stay around people and talk to them. Others will say, oh, I want to go with Reuven. I want to go with Shimon. Here, let's get the horse. Let's get the wagon. Let's all go to Yerushalayim. Let's bring some bikurim. Let's bring some karbanos. Let's all get together. Hashem wants such a person to take his time. I don't say her time because women didn't have the mitzvah to Aliyah l'regel. I'm sorry. They wanted him to take his time. Hashem wants that person not to go fast, go slow, because I want everyone to see the parade going, and other people will listen, and you'll have the discussion, and you'll get more people to go. Chavetz Chaim said, same thing over here. This guy who's secular, in those days, the Zionist, the guy was very secular, no religion, just lios am chavshi. Let's just be free in our own land. Chavshi, Chazal say min ha-mitzvos. We don't need any mitzvos. We'll just be free in our own land. Chavetz Chaim says, such a person, Hashem doesn't want that person to have so much influence. So get in, you need to get money, get your money quickly. Hashem made it so that he got his money very quickly, that people just gave him to get him out of town. But you who are going for mostos in Yerushalayim, you're going for yeshivas, you're going for hospitals, you're going for chesed. Hashem wants you to have a hard time. Hashem wants you to talk to people, to let them know what's going on in Yerushalayim, al pitorah, what's going on, what are the good things religiously going on. Hashem doesn't want you to have it easy. He wants people to be influenced, to listen to you, to have the discussion. So it's not so easy for you. It'll take longer for you. This is how the Chavetz Chaim helped him feel that your job is much more important religiously than the other guy's job. And I told this story. I was debating, do I give this story or not? It shows, unfortunately, the schism or the chasm between the religious group and the non-religious group back in the 20s and 30s was so strong, was so wide, that there was, had it been less pronounced, had the Zionists, early Zionists, had they had more sensitivity and included more religion or some religion, more Jews would have probably been saved, because it would have been more attractive for the ultra-Orthodox to say, yes, it's not such a trade place to go. It's a good idea to escape and go there.
I see the opposite. Correct. If the real Frum would be more open to the secular ones, and they would have gone and showed them and gave them a little bit here, a little musa here, and bring them along slowly, it would have been fine. Chabad has the right idea. And if there would have been more, it would have saved a lot of people. I blame the real Frum ones for this. Correct.
It's always a two-way street.
Exactly, it's a two-way street.
It's always a two-way street.
Exactly.
I read at the end of the war, was it the Krasner story? He had a tough time. He raised money, and Eichmann needed money for the war. And he said, you could have your Jews if you could go raise the funds. And they actually let him get a German plane out of Europe to go try to get funds. And the story goes, I have to research it more, but the hard to say this, Jews in Israel, in Palestine, didn't put him in prison to keep him from meeting with Ben Gurion to try to influence, to raise the money to bring more Jews out of Europe, because those who did this to him felt it's not going to help our statehood, our quest for statehood. So there was a war going on, Jews amongst themselves. This was a terrible time that they didn't want to save there was the Frummer from Hungary. They didn't want to bother with them because it's going to hurt our quest to have our statehood in 1948. That's a very bad allegation, and I read that that's what happened. Yes.
Before mentioned about the passage of our case with the axe where someone was negligent, but really it's the show game. First of all, American law, I don't think treats things that way. If you're negligent, basically, if you can prove negligence, you go into jail. Okay, but the other thing is putting together this guy that was negligent with someone that could be not 99%, but 100% innocent. An example: guy's driving in his car, right, and the kid.
It could absolutely, it could be.
Innocent. Why should he have to go to Orange Nicholas for? He didn't do anything wrong. The kid wasn't wearing a helmet. The kid comes out on a bicycle out of nowhere, and he's a kid. He's a good driver. Never had a problem in his whole life. Right? What does this guy have to go to Orange Nicholas?
Okay, I could answer with a mystical answer that if Hashem chose this person to be the innocent,
so he did something wrong,
the innocent taker of a life, then this person has to do introspection in his soul, why it happened to him, and maybe the Arei Miklat is the place for this person to be. It's hard to
understand that.
That's right. It's hard to understand that. It doesn't take away that this person has to go to Ir Miklat, Shira.
So Honey and I were like intrigued that when you were talking about the Arei Miklat, you said a man or a woman.
Yes.
And we never thought of a woman in all the years that I've heard about Arei Miklat or been taught.
This is the example that we always say men are chauvinistic, women are feministic, and you always assume that we're not those bad guys that go to Ir Miklat. Yeah, women can do that too.
No, it's just you never hear about that, and also that would require very specific kind of arrangements in an Ir Miklat if it's going to be men and women.
Yes, yeah. It would be usually the Torah.
Record or anything of a woman? I'm like playing it in my head.
I don't know offhand. There'd be no reason to assume that a woman would not go to Ir Miklat. Interesting sociological observation. Yes, like Rabbi Markowitz mentioned, could a woman become a Nazir? And Rabbi Schechter would ask students, could a woman become a Nazir? And the guy would start thinking, there's a Taisus and Kedushin, et cetera, and he takes out a Chumash and shows the guy read. It says, Isha, woman, man or a woman. Yeah, just a pasuk. A woman can become a Nazira also. So women can do strange, bad things also.
The Parsha starts,
Huh?
it says if a man or a woman is a worships other gods, right? The very, very beginning.
Sure.
It also struck me, because it said man or woman.
That doesn't
Women
strike
were
me
very
as-
good with the Egel, right? So I was thinking women might be
Not as
stronger
much as a
spiritually.
Army class.
So why did they specifically say both?
That just,
I mean, statistically.
By the way, hey, how long was a person required to stay in the?
Till forever, until the Kohen Gadol died.
That's why the Cohen's mother was.
That's right. Until the Kohen Gadol died. That was your ticket out. So it could be if the Kohen Gadol is a young man, not a young woman. If the Kohen Gadol is a young man, it could be a life sentence.
So how big are they specific?
Ir Miklat was probably, I don't know how many murderers there were, but there was probably big enough. It had a whole infrastructure. It had to. And in fact, if you're in a miklat, if you had a Rebbe, your Rebbe has to go with you. You have to provide spiritual sustenance for the person in Ir Miklat. It says if someone is Gola Ir Miklat, Gola Rabo Imo, his master, his teacher has to go with him. You can't just throw a person to Ir Miklat and not provide him his
So
shiur.
you're sentencing the rabbi to that?
And you're also telling the rabbi, not into inadvertently, that you, who didn't teach him properly, are sort of a little responsible for this type of behavior. Yeah.
If it's an accident, what does that have to do with teaching a properly?
Exactly.
But the Torah, the paradigmatic case is the guy in the woods with the garzon, with the axe, and it falls off. And I learned Makos, and the Gemara describes it that it's sort of like it's a zadon korov l'shogeg. It's a shogeg korov l'mezid. It's shogeg. Yes, you didn't mean to do it, but it's got culpability because you have to be doubly extra careful. It shouldn't happen, but it could happen. You have to extra care.
Also, the war in the abortion, probably because the twin Shvat wanted to decide.
Oh, they were proportionally, there were more murderers from Menashe. I think they said there were more murderers from that side than, yes.
Okay, I don't mean this to be funny.
Go ahead.
Right? Based on this thing with the famous thing, the axe, the thing he flies off, and have there been, this is a real question, have there been any modern rabbanim that have put an isur on what I personally think is a meshuggah sport Even though my kids have done it, it's throwing these axes, you know, you go to a place and there's a target and you could, for entertainment, and you throw axe throwing. Because when I've seen that done and I'm thinking, okay, so you have to put your arm back and then swing. Well, the hatchet part can go flying off. I mean, obviously, these places take precautions. No one should be standing behind you and stuff like that. But I'm surprised, maybe there is some rub that said, don't do that.
When someone in the baseball game, they showed on TV, and the guy came over when they got brain damage.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
read
yeah.
about that.
Yeah, I know, but there's a difference with Shiur's case. You're right. Things that are so dangerous, like bungee jumping, things that are.
Bungee jumping, you could just kill yourself. It's
Oh,
not.
I understand. Okay, then it's even killing yourself is not a.
Sure, right.
It's not an issue to undertake something like that. Also, you're right. Yes.
Sometimes it's called inherently dangerous activities, which you don't, like a dog bite or something like that. The person's ultimately liable for it. But when you talk about the axe throwing and things of this nature, when it's done in an environment, the doctrine of the assumption of risk comes into play. In other words, if you're there and you're participating in it, it's different than somebody chopping wood with the axe handle flying off.
Anywhere you have to sign a waiver, you shouldn't be there.
Yeah, well, the other things like a baseball, if you get hit with the foul ball.
Yeah, you've signed by buying a ticket. You've implicitly agreed to yes, it's on your ticket, and I'm sure it says it on the digital ticket too. That what is the term? Bats can be thrown, balls can be thrown. So any incidental damage, you are absolving. That you're assuming the bearer assumes all risk incidental to the game of baseball. That's.
I think there's a statistical threshold in anything that you can get hurt with. Logically, if you can participate, now like with skiing, there are people that get killed. Sonny Bono got killed. On the
Right,
slides.
right.
So depending on how many people die per 1,000, there's a certain number there. It's permissible or not permissible based on the numbers. It's going to be negligible.
Okay, I'll tell you this. We have to be able to drive and to get, at least today with non-autonomous vehicles, we're still driving. Maybe our children and grandchildren will not be driving anymore, but we're still driving. You have to be able to go and do normal things. You have to go to work, you have to go to shul, you have to go shopping. So society assumes that risk, and halacha respects that. We're not going to live like the Amish. And even with the horse and buggy, you can, like in Central Park, that guy that went on a horse and buggy and got killed, that kid. Yeah, but there are things that you don't have to do, like especially you're not an athlete and you're not an Olympic superstar. Like going skiing, people will break things all the time. Every time you go to a ski lodge, there's somebody hobbling around. There's an ambulance all the time, or things that you can't do. Something that you should always be mindful of. Your kid, your grandchildren are going on a sport. I like bungee jumping or parasailing, things that only professionals should be doing. They're not professionals. They shouldn't be doing this because it's a very dangerous sport. Like there aren't other things you can do that are entertaining, that are not going to possibly kill you or maim you, other things. But the idea of ir miklat and personal responsibility, your brakes have to be checked. You know your brakes have to be checked, but you're late. You have a meeting. By driving a car that you know has to be maintained, and you get into an accident, you're not just an accident. There's negligence. That's what ir miklat is trying to address. You have a responsibility that if you don't want somebody else taking that risk, you shouldn't take that risk. Yeah, it's not convenient. Your car has to be checked. Take an Uber that day, walk that day. There's always a choice not to do something that is potentially dangerous. Let's go to one or two more things. Yes.
It just seems it's
Just a minute.
actually harsher than what society is, because to prove negligence is not that easily. You have to convict someone. Over here, we're saying with the possible negligence, because that's what RA Mikla is, you're basically going to be locked up in RA Mikla. So it's might be a harsher approach to regular law.
Might be.
Is there a
Might be.
choice?
Yossi, you had a question?
Yeah, why does the Torah give the relatives the right to kill the person? Forever.
I think
Yeah,
if you asked a shaila, and in fact, I learned this, if you ask a shaila, can I go kill this one? He killed a relative. The answer is no. You're not allowed to. That's not the halacha that you have a right to do that. We're not going to prosecute you for doing that. The Torah is not going to hold that person liable, because the Torah does use the word. If the first murderer is outside of the Ir Miklat, he steps out, then Ratzach, Goel Hadamas Haratzeach, Ein Lo Dam, V'Ratzach, and the Goel Hadam, the avenger of the blood, murders the murderer, Ein Lo Dam, he has no liability.
Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah. So the Torah uses the word V'Ratzach, that it's murder. It is usur. It is usur to go kill. If you ask the shaila, can I go avenge the blood? No, you're not allowed to do that. But if you do that, because it's human nature, a crime of passion, it's human nature, the Torah says we're not going to prosecute you for that. We're not going to make you go to Ir Miklat. We're not going to give you chiyuv misa. We're going to let it go because we understand human nature.
Yeah, so that's good for like the first year, let's say. But after that, you should have cooled off and not do it anymore. So why would the person have to stay in the Ir Mikla?
Okay, you tell somebody, you tell a mother whose kid was killed by a drunk driver. You tell a mother 5 years, 10 years later, when the guy's released from prison, are you cooled off? Are you okay now?
But if the drunk driver is already not the same as the.
Yeah. Or you tell somebody who served 25 years for manslaughter or for murder in the first degree. You ask the family, oh, the person served their time. Are you okay with them walking around? They're not going to cool off. Yes.
He said that if I'm a relative, if I now take vengeance on the death of my relative, so over here, he's not accountable to anything. He doesn't have to go to jail. He doesn't have to go to How is he looked upon there?
I don't know, but Ein Lo Dam, there's no dam in Basin. That means you're not going to pay. Maybe you're right. You shouldn't do such a thing. You shouldn't be so hot-headed. You should cool down. But the Torah doesn't go against human nature. All right, very quickly, two more divrei Torah. One of the things, we're allowed to have a king. We're allowed to appoint a king over us. But it says rak lo yarba lo susim. He must not accumulate horses. So he doesn't return the nation to Mitzrayim to get a horse. So look at the word. You shouldn't have many. You shouldn't have too many, an abundance of horses. And he shouldn't, therefore, he shouldn't bring, because if he does, he will end up bringing the nation back to Egypt where there are good horses to get a horse. It starts off with Rabim and goes to Lashon Yochid. So why does the Torah switch it? Chavetz Chaim says that is the nature of the Yetzer Hara. Yetzer Hara tells you, first thing, do an Aveira. Nah, I'm not going to do it. It's an Aveira. Come on, you're going to get so much benefit. You're going to get so much benefit. Look at how much you're going to benefit. You enumerate physical benefit, enumerate financial benefit. You need a threshold to be reached before you'll say, okay, I'll do it. But once you do an Aveira, Laman Harbo says you could do it for just one horse, for just the smallest amount. Once you're used to doing an Aveira, it's easy to continue doing it. That's why the threshold, you have to set a high threshold and never reach that threshold, because once you do, It's very easy. And Chazal, the Muslim movement tells us, the Torah says, if a person does it 2 or 3 times, it's nasa lo keheter. It becomes like a heter. What happens if you do something more, 3, 4, 5 times? Nasa lo kemitzvah. It becomes so entrenched that you are so compelled to do it. It's like a mitzvah to do something wrong. Finally, the Torah tells us when you go, when you go to the war against your enemy, and you see horse and chariot, you see the army, you see all their military might. Don't fear them. Because the human nature is, oh my God, look at all those armies against us. We have no chance. We have no chance. You shouldn't fear them. The pasuk continues, because God is with you, who took you out of the land of Egypt. So the Ran says, Rabbeinu Yonah says, in Sharei Tshuva, that's not just for going to war. That's not just going to war against a military. Yeah, of course, when you go to war, you better not be afraid, or you're not going to win. But you shouldn't be afraid because Hashem is with you. When you are faced terrible odds in your own life, Dr. Rahman al-Islam gives a very bad, grim report, gives up hope. Don't do that. Lo sira meham. Don't fear that. Why? Because Hashem Elokecha ima. God who took you out of Egypt, God who upended all the laws of nature to take you out of Egypt, God who gave us the 6-day war victory, didn't believe that we could do that. It was not nuclear power, even though Israel might have had it already, might not have had it already, but it was conventional warfare, and we still won against all the armies of the 7 countries in the Mideast. Hashem Elokecha imach. God is with you. We don't fear when the odds are against us, because odds never occur, never happen. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu is involved, it's never against you. The odds are in your favor. Everybody have a good week.
Rabbi Weintraub.
Yes, Nathan.
But it doesn't always happen that way.
It doesn't. But Hashem,
individuals get cancer, individuals have.
That's right. But
how can you not have fear if you get?
No. Well, fear, despondency. Don't give up hope is what I'm saying. Don't give up hope and say everything's hopeless. Nothing is hopeless if Hashem is there. Of course, people do get sick, and time comes for everybody. But to be despondent, to give up hope, that's not a Jewish attitude that we should cultivate.
Understand. Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.
Yeah.
All right, let's
Rabbi Abe.
Yes, Jay.
Yashin Clark, Stephen Freitau in this week's Jewish Standard wrote an excellent article.
I saw it.
Yeah, excellent. Very optimistic.
Yeah. I did see Plato wrote. Yes. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah. Scar, okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Maybe we'll see you later. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. See you later.